Hello, captains, and welcome to this Explain 10 video. A few hours ago, X-Aviation released the highly anticipated Real Weather Connector, or RWC. This plugin is a weather enhancement plugin for Explain 10. It works alongside SkyMaxPro version 3.1.1. It is not intended that this software or this plugin replaces your current weather generation software, but it's simply an enhancement to what you already have. A big question that has been kind of asked on my channel, I've received a lot of emails on this, is whether it's going to work with the NOAA Weather plugin. And I can confirm that it works just fine with the NOAA Weather plugin. The difference is very subtle. I don't think that the average person would notice the difference, and the difference would be, of course, in the wind and turbulence that you experience inside the sim. The cloud placement is pretty much the same. I could not notice any difference running Explain 10 native weather with RWC or running the NOAA Weather. Now, let me tell you just a piece of information. The way that weather is depicted with the NOAA Weather plugin differs from the native Explain weather engine in that it sets the weather uniformly across Explain using data refs. And as you fly from one point to another, that information gets updated, depending, of course, on the interval. Whereas in Explain native engine, what happens is that the weather is downloaded in a Metar file, and then that file is basically read by the Explain weather engine, and the weather is then injected into the Explain world. So, we don't want to get too technical, but I can confirm that it basically works with NOAA Weather plugin. It works in a slightly different way, but it does work. So, when you install the RWC, the first thing you will see is that when you go to the SkyMaxPro, you will have this option here, which is Real World Weather. And if you click that, you're going to have three options. The first one is automatic. It says only when real weather is on. And the second says always, ignore Explain settings. And 3, never, only read weather data refs instead. So let me tell you what these are. Automatic, it means that RWC will use the native Explain weather engine to generate or place the clouds in their location and basically put in the correct type of cloud in that location. Okay, so this is the ideal setting for RWC. If you want to see everything that RWC offers and totally max out the benefit of having this plugin, this is the way to go. And this is compatible with all the weather generation software that use Metar files basically for weather depiction. This setting here, always, it means and says ignore Explain settings. What this is this is for use with weather generation engines that basically disable Explain's real world weather engine, and instead injects the weather uniformly across Explain using data refs. Okay, so this is, for example, if you're using a NOAA Weather plugin or you're using EFA-SS, that would be the setting that you would choose. Now, when you switch between those, please note that it might take about 60 seconds for the changes to take effect and for the files to get downloaded. The final option here is when you don't want to use RWC, you want to disable it, and you want to simply read the weather data refs instead. So if you want to use NOAA Weather plugin, for example, or EFA-SS when you're flying online, for example, on the VATSIM network, you might want to disable this so that you see basically the weather that other pilots see while on the online network. with all of this said, let us go ahead and try some tests. We'll do a few maybe here, and then we'll select different locations and see how the weather is depicted. All right. So we are currently situated at Stewart Airport, British Columbia in Canada. The ICO code for this airport is Charlie Zulu Sierra Tango, if you're interested. And this is, of course, a payware scenery. It's a very nice scenery, and it's featured in my guide to explain 10 sceneries and textures. So by all means, if you like this scenery, go ahead and grab it from the explain.org. Let's go ahead and begin. Before we begin, let me show you my SkyMaxPro settings. So I've changed things slightly. You will notice that the cloud area covered is now 6,084 square kilometers. Now be careful with this. This will basically add layers and layers of cloud, so it could actually bring your frame rates down. So be very cautious with this slider here. Cloud detail, I left it at 350 meters, and then the minimum cloud size is 500. That's default, and I've increased the maximum cloud size for to 5,000 meters. Rest of the stuff here I left it the same. I've changed the source layer resolution to medium and the source texture version to number 1. Other than that, everything else is the same as my previous settings. You will notice that my cloud terrain blend softness has been set to max. Okay, so let us go ahead and depart Stewart and see what we can find out. Okay, folks, so we are at runway 18, Stewart Airport. We are ready for departure. Parking brake released. Rotate. Very strong wind here at Stewart. Alright, one thing I can see, which is not, indigenous to RWC, but you can see the, the weather formation here. The cloud formation here on the mountains. Which looks very, very nice, very convincing. Look at that here, over here. That looks very nice. Overall, SkyMaxPro version 3.1 has really brought in a lot to explain. I think it is really one of the best plugins for explain. So as you can see, everything is looking pretty good. That looks very nice. Very, very nice. Very convincing. Okay. So we've seen this now, and this is no different than anything else we've seen before. So let's go ahead and, change the altitude. And perhaps we go to 10,000 feet. And 0, maybe slightly less. Maybe I'll do 7,000 feet. Okay, folks, so we are now at 7,000 feet, and it's looking awesome. Looks very nice indeed. Now, one thing I noticed for sure, and by the way, I'm not using the NOAA plugin in this video. So this is the native Explain 10 weather. That's the real weather. And I'm using, of course, SkyMaxPro version 3.1.1 and RWC. And it looks very nice indeed. Yeah. Alright, let me switch to, I think there is an overcast layer here. We'll check now in a minute. But let me switch to external view. Okay folks, so I've changed the time now to approximately 6 p.m. and as you can see, the everything looks still very nice, very convincing. The coloration of the clouds. Of course, these are all features of SkyMaxPro version 3. But what you can notice is that there are no pauses at all. It's very nice, very smooth. Alright folks, so we're back into the flight deck. Let me go ahead and darken things here a bit more, just to kind of see how things look at night. Still looks pretty nice. Yeah. Alright, let's go ahead and try something different. Okay, captains, so our next test is going to be here around Geneva, and the time is around 6:30 p.m. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take off and I will see you at flight level 350, and we'll see what the weather looks like from that altitude. Okay folks, we are cruising at flight level 300, climbing to flight level 310, and as you can see, there is no major difference between running the running SkyMaxPro version 3.1 with the RWC, so there isn't really anything visually different, at least in my opinion. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to basically reduce our altitude to about 25,000 feet and see if we can sort of spot something different. Okay folks, I decided to descend to flight level 210 to get closer to the clouds. So let's go ahead and switch outside here and see what's going on. Again, nothing major in terms of the visuals. As you saw just now, the weather got updated and there was no pause. It's just kind of refreshed the weather. It was pretty quick. I think that is a major improvement. So let me go ahead here and change our heading. There you go. As you can see, there's really nothing, anything different. At least from my experience, it's kind of running this or the NOAA weather plugin without RWC. I don't really see any major difference in terms of the visuals. Okay, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to change the time again so that we can, see. Alright, so that's now complete daylight, and let's switch to external view. Okay folks, as you can see, the visuals are great without a doubt, but I'm not sure I can see any difference that RWC has added really to the experience. It is, yes, the pauses are gone, but aside from this, I don't really see anything different. Alright, let's go ahead and do a different test. Okay, captains. Now what we're going to do is we're going to do a test where we will consult the current Metar information for a specific location. We will then go into the sim and see how the sim behaves with RWC and the X-Plane native weather engine. So I've selected Innsbruck, my favorite spot for testing all kinds of things. So we are going to be flying from Innsbruck. Let's check the Metar information. Okay, looks like this here is concerning me. There is a gust wind of about 36 knots, and that is not safe for flying. So it is quite windy, as you can see here. At 120 degrees is 17 knots, gusting to 36 knots. That's very unsafe for flying a small general aviation aircraft like a Cessna. Visibility is 10 kilometers or more. Few clouds at 6,000 feet. Visual flight rules. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump in into X-Plane and see how this information is translated into the sim. Okay, captains, we are at runway 8 Innsbruck, and we are inside the sim, and as you can see there are a few scattered clouds, and this is it is indicative of the Metar information that we've consulted. There were a few clouds at 6,000, so that's about right. I've looked up the satellite imagery of Innsbruck. So let's take a look at the local map, and let's go to the textured. And yes, that looks it looks pretty close to what I've seen on the on the satellite imagery. A few scattered clouds at 6,000. That looks that looks okay. Now, what I'm concerned about is really the gusting wind. So let's go ahead and listen to the ATIS, which is 126.2.
Innsbruck crane bitten information Foxtrot. 800 Zulu weather. Sky conditions 6,000 few. Visibility more than 10. Temperature 15, 2.5. Wind shear alert. Wind 360 at 0, variable 340 to 020, gust 19. Altimeter 2971. Arriving and departing runway 08.
Okay, it looks like the gusting wind has reduced from the time. It's been a while since I had to do a few things and came back to the video. So it looks like we have 20 knots gusting wind. That's a lot less than 36, I'll tell you. But everything else looks pretty, pretty close to. All the information is matching the Metar information we read. Some information is not exactly matching, but it's pretty close. So let's go ahead and release the parking brake, and let's give it some power. Alright, full power. Oof, look at that. That's the wind right there. I have full right rudder right now. I knew this was going to happen. It's very, very difficult to control the aircraft. Okay, that's 60 knots. Oof. Wow. And as you can see, the weather, the gusting winds are really manifested here. Look at that. I can barely control this aircraft. Alright, I'll try to... Okay, so as you can see, whatever we read is definitely depicted in the sim. That's very, very dangerous weather to fly in. Alright, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead. It's very difficult to control the aircraft with this amount of wind. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to climb to 6,000 using the map, the local map. Okay, so we are now at 6,000 feet, and this is we're experiencing pretty much the same weather conditions. We are closer to the clouds, so this is also indicative of the Metar information, where it says there are a few clouds at 6,000 feet, and these are the clouds at 6,000 feet. So as you can see, you know, this is very nice. I really like this, and the way the clouds look, the position of the clouds is you know, pretty accurate according to the satellite imagery that I've seen. So I can confirm that RWC is doing its magic right now, as far as, you know, how the clouds look in position, how the weather information really is translated into the sim. So definitely I will be exploring this a lot more, but for now I think you know, I think RWC is definitely an add-on that you want to get for X-Plane. It works really well with you know, with SkyMaxPro version 3. And it really gives you that extra level of realism when flying. Okay, I think that's good for this test, and let's go ahead now and do another test. Okay, captains, we are located at Frankfurt Airport. We are ready for departure. We're still in the Cessna 172, and what we're going to be doing now is, this is going to be our final test, and we're going to basically assess performance in this final test. As you can see, my frames are kind of at 29, 30, between 28 and 30 frames, and the reason why it has dropped is that I've changed my SkyMaxPro settings. And here's what I've done. I've increased the cloud area covered to 10,000 square kilometers. Okay, that's slightly more than halfway for this particular setting. And I think this is the main reason why my frames have dropped significantly. And a good setting, what I saw is that a good setting, it would be about 1/3 of the way. So about here, it was probably going to be like something like 4,000 or 5,000 square kilometers would be a good settings that will give you a good dramatic kind of visual look, as well as performance. However, at 28, 29 frames, I think that's still pretty good, considering this airfoils lab Cessna is really an FPS hitter. So let's go ahead and take off and do a few turns and see how you know, how the plane behaves, how the overall performance is. All right, so let's release the parking brake, and hopefully we'll not have as much gusting wind as in Innsbruck. The weather is still not very good here in Frankfurt, but definitely not as bad as Innsbruck. All right, 60 knots and rotate. Okay, the sim is running very smooth. No worries there. We're still at about 28 frames at the moment. And as you can see, we are flying into the cloud. So I'm sure if we begin a turn that takes us away from this thick cloud in front of us, I'm sure that performance will probably get better. Let's see here what's going on over there. Yeah. So there is a little bit of stutter, and according to you know, to the manual of RWC, is that if you experience stutters or pauses, then that is an indication that you need to tone down your cloud coverage, your cloud settings. So at the moment, I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to leave it and just going to play with it here and see what happens. Alright, let's go ahead and make a right turn here. Okay, and as you can see now, the frames started increasing a bit as the cloud in this, you know, right in front of us are not as thick as they were right there. So it does really make a big difference as you fly into these clouds. Yeah. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is, as we fly here, and we're looking at about 33 frames, 34 frames, that's perfectly fine. Let's go ahead and change the SkyMaxPro configuration while in flight to, let's say, 6,000 square kilometers, and let's say apply, and let's see what happens. Okay, look at that. Now there is a significant increase in frames. See this here. Look, 35, 37, 38. So again, this confirms that yes, the the cloud-covered area will significantly affect performance. So as you can see now, I'm getting about 38 frames. Yes, and the stutters are gone. Everything looks good, and the clouds still look pretty, pretty dramatic. So that really confirms that this was the reason the frames have dropped significantly. Oh, there's a police car there. And as we make a turn now and head to the dense cloud, we are still getting very decent frames, as opposed to when we began the video. As you can see now, we are still going into this thick cloud, but we are getting like 38 frames, 39 frames, which is very, very good. So you have to be aware of your settings. Let me go ahead now and just do one quick test and take the plane to about 6,000 feet. Okay, folks, we are now flying into the cloud at 6,000 feet, and as you can see, although we are directly in the cloud, we're still getting very good frames here. Look at that, 36 frames, 35 frames, still very, very good. So that setting probably is the suitable settings for my machine. Anything more, slightly more or slightly less, I don't think will have an effect. But going from, as you saw, going from 10,000 to about 6,000 has made a great impact, positive impact on performance. Let me reduce speed here, and as you can see, everything looking very, very good at the moment. That's fine. Okay, captains, so this concludes our test. Let's go ahead and move on to our final thoughts and conclusion of our video. Okay, captains, we have now reached the conclusion of our video. And as a final thought, I would like to say that RWC is a great add-on for SkyMaxPro version 3.1.1. It is by no means a plugin that is intended to replace your existing weather generation software. If you are using NOAA Weather plugin or FS Global Weather or any other weather generation engine for that matter, you will definitely come to appreciate the added realism that RCW will provide in your sim. Just a quick thing, as you've seen, when we can summarize what we've done in this video, is we've looked at at the visual appearance of clouds and location of these clouds, and this is not something that you should actually look for. If you want to really test whether real weather connector is doing its magic, you need to consult real weather information and maybe look at satellite imagery and then compare them to what the sim depicts in terms of weather. That would be the ultimate test, and when we've done this for our test at Innsbruck, it was very clear that RWC was doing its magic. Also, we've looked at performance, and we've seen very few settings and how they can affect the performance inside the sim. I hope that this has been a useful video for you folks, and until next time, please take care of yourselves and each other. Thank you so very much for watching, and bye bye for now.